for being here with us this afternoon and for signing in. Obviously, thank you to our speakers as well. So just a bit of background on the event. For those of you who don't know me or my business, my name is Barry Cranford. I'm the founder of the London Java community, and I also run Rework, which is a tech recruitment company. So at Rework, we're all about trying to find ways that recruitment can be a force for good in the tech industry beyond just getting people jobs. So what that means is that we're not just about trying to get people their next job, but we really want to help as many people as possible find a passion for what they do, and then help them go all in on that. So a bit of a taste of some of the things we do. We organize about 15 different communities and user groups. They've got about 10,000 people split across them. And we've made over 3,000 mentor introductions now and run over 800 learning focused events. And we do it all for free. It's all part of this initiative where we'll make money from getting people jobs, usually developers, and then we'll take a chunk of that money and drive that into these community initiatives. So this year we've been doing something a little bit different and setting up what we're calling ladder groups. So we're trying to take people that are on a road from one place to another, try and connect them with other people that are doing similar things or on similar journeys, and then hopefully connect them with people that are further along in the journey as well, to make everything a bit more fun and a bit more interesting. So we're doing it with aspiring speakers. We've also got aspiring principal engineers, and this is part of our aspiring speakers initiative. So far this year, we've got over 50 people speaking. I think we're probably approaching 60 now. Dom will tell you the exact figures. But yeah, that's what this is all about. So thank you everyone for getting involved. Thank you for coming again. And with that, I will hand over to Solange for our first presentation, which is an overview of infrastructure as code. Solange.
Thank you. Let me start sharing my screen. All right. Okay, so thank you, Barry. My name is Solange. I've been a Java developer for about 10 years. And I've recently joined London to work for a consultancy called Avoidance. And today I'd like to look at a quick overview of infrastructure as code. So what do we mean by infrastructure as code? Infrastructure as code, I like this definition that a developer advocate at IBM Cloud Education shared, which is mainly really, it's the use of high-level descriptive coding language to automate the provisioning of our IT infrastructure. So instead of developers or engineers manually configuring networks, configuring machines and operating systems, doing all of that manually, what we're trying to do here is use code to do that automatically for us. It is, infrastructure as code is one of the technical practice of DevOps. And I like to see it as just really the same way we describe our business applications. We are describing infrastructure, but we are using source code. So why is it important? So as I mentioned, I've been a developer for a while now. And when I started out working for a product company, we had a complete separate ops team that would configure our infrastructure and our environments for us. And usually, whenever we needed a new server, it will take about almost a month to get it configured and up and running for us to use. And because, well, they needed to order the physical machine, and then they needed to configure it and wire up everything using network cables. And all of this was such a highly manual process with which was documented in paper documents in the big folder like this, where they had to go through each instruction one by one. And it will take up about a month to get it ready. So that was the first problem with that. It was really time consuming. The other problem was that it was very error prone, because if you missed out one of those lines, you had to configure it, get to the end and try to test it, and it wasn't working. You had to start over. The third main problem that we faced was our environments would really quickly diverge. So for example, our development environment or test environments were updated far more quickly than our production environment. So for example, if I'm working on my own application, I need to test out a new configuration, I would make that change to the dev environment really quickly to test out really quickly. And then that configuration change most of the time will not be replicated onto the production environment, which meant that actually in the end, I did not have any reliable or predictable measure of how my application would do in production because the underlying infrastructure was completely different. The other main problem we faced was if, let's say, for example, our production environment, one of the servers, I don't know, had a fault and had to be replaced. Again, because it was such a highly manual process to go through, it would take not less than a week to have it up and running, which resulted in problems in availability, in scalability, and yeah. So this is why infrastructure code will come in handy to solve all these problems. So because we are automating everything, it means that our processes are going to be fast and cost effective. Because we are using code to do this, we can borrow from principles from software development and apply them to infrastructure code so that we end up with code that is testable, that is self-documenting. We can use principles like single responsibility principle, separation of concerns, in such a way that we write very small modules that can be independently tested, they can be used, reused, and we can use principles like maybe test-driven development to actually roll out our implementation code from tests, And so this is why infrastructure code is very important, because then you end up with a predictable infrastructure, you end up with a testable infrastructure. And whenever, for example, prior, like 10 years ago, when it would take us 7 weeks to configure a whole new environment, in this case, it's just a case of minutes. When you need a new environment, you have a spike in load, for example, you just execute your code, and then in 2 minutes or 5 minutes tops, you have it up and ready. Okay, so how do I get started? If you're a developer or a team of developers and you'd like to adopt infrastructure as code, how do I get started? I like to see infrastructure as code as two main separate concerns. So the first, on one hand, we have resource provisioning, where we define and we describe our infrastructure, and then we say, okay, we need network components, we need virtual machines, we need data storage, load balancers, all of these things. And there are a number of tools to do so. On the other hand, we have configuration management, where after we have defined the list of components that we need, now we are going to write code to configure those components. And so in this space, you have tools like Ansible, Puppet, and Chef to allow you to do that. Now, some of the recommendations that I would make when you are starting out is a list of key principles to keep in mind. The first one being codify everything, of course. So do not have part of your infrastructure code in code and the other part as a manual process, because then that would defeat the whole purpose of having your infrastructure be predictable. Try as much as possible to write your code so that your infrastructure is idempotent, meaning that whenever you execute it, it will always yield the same result, regardless of the starting point. And finally, immutability, this is, as much as possible, try to write code in such a way that is your infrastructure is going to be immutable, meaning that instead of changing your infrastructure in place, let's say you need to apply a new configuration, instead of doing that in place, change your source code, then test and roll out this new version of your infrastructure and retire the old one. Yeah, so that's what I had to share about infrastructure as code. Thank you very much for your attention.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Solange. Very much appreciated. Does anyone have any questions for Solange after that?
Sorry, please go ahead.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's a quick one. So you'd mentioned several different tools that could be used for the kind of configuration portions of it. Is there a particular one you would recommend for getting started, or a particular one that's your favorite?
Okay, so it depends on your context, of course. But if you are, for example, on AWS and you are a Java developer, if you're looking into resource provisioning tools, I would recommend you start with, I think I've added it here, the Cloud Development Kit, because it allows you to write your infrastructure code using Java, for example. So the learning curve is not going to be as steep as learning something like Terraform, although Terraform has its advantages because it's cloud vendor agnostic.
Cool, thank you.
No problem.
Brilliant. Thanks, Carly, and thanks, Solange. Thank you very much. Okay, one thing I didn't mention at the beginning is we do like to collect feedback. So if you're happy to share a bit of feedback, it's really, really useful, especially when people are getting started with presentations or until they're a fully blown conference speaker. It's really good to highlight specific things that you like, specific things that stood out, or anything like that. So we've got a form, Dom, thank you very much. Just post it on the chat there. Be great if you can, even if it's just a few multiple choice things that stood out for you, that would be wonderful if you wouldn't mind. Next up, we're going to try, Andrea, we're going to try and see if your screen is, I can't find you, there you are.
Yes.
You're going to see if it's going to be nice to us, if Zoom's going to be friendly.
Yes, I hope so. Are you going to introduce me first, or should I try and share now?
Yeah, try if you can share. So this is Andrea Musap with 3 tips for writing effective emails.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. Let me try and see at once if I can share or not, because I was having technical problems. Okay, can you guys see my presentation? We're
in. Success.
Oh, great. Thank you, Krystian. You're going to help me, but I prefer to go at my own pace. So, yeah, my name is Andrea, and I'm going to share with you 3 tips for writing effective emails. And by effective, I mean, try to not waste our own time and our colleagues' time, and avoid some problems and confusion. Let me put this in present mode. So I have my Twitter here if you want to keep in touch later. And so this presentation is based on some research that I have been doing for a while and on my own experience. So I found this result of a survey, the link for the references in the end of the presentation, where this company found that 64% of the respondents of the survey about problems with emails, they said that they had problems either with emails that they sent or received, and this confusion and problems were mostly due to lack of reply, or too many reply alls, or messages that were confusing or vague. Let's have a look at this a bit more. So if I would share with you just 1 tip about email, to me, the most important thing is the subject line, because this is the first thing that your recipient sees, and it helps a good descriptive, meaningful subject line can help them to decide if they have to stop what they're doing and go and look at your email, or if they can leave it to later, or it's very helpful. I have some examples here. So these are two real examples from emails that I received at work. And the red line is the subject line that I received. And the green line is a suggestion of how much more helpful it would be if these people had worked a bit more in the subject line of the emails. So I think this is very important. The second tip that I wanted to share with you is the CC rule. It's incredible, but a lot of people don't know what these fields are about. Even people in management positions, high ups in the companies, I see they misusing these fields all the time. And this can be a great source of confusion. It brings me back to the result of that survey, and I was wondering if the lack of reply is because the people didn't use these fields right. The thing is, when you put someone in the CC field, it's just for their information. You shouldn't expect them to reply or follow up with your email. So I think that it's very important to share this tip. And to finish, concise, it's not the same as impolite. I am totally for being, straightforward, straight to the point, but this doesn't mean that you have to be rude with people. People are sending emails without a salutation, without signing off, and this is kind of rude, okay? You don't have to go through all of this when you are in a thread, but for the first email, it's really nice to start with a salutation, keep your text, of course, short to the point, but delivering your message, and sign off to your email. And one extra tip that I just remembered and I'm going to share is if you are actually waiting for an answer, make this clear. For example, what I do is when I finish my test, I always say, I'm looking forward to your reply, because this makes it like 100% clear to your recipient that you are waiting for them to follow up with the problem, okay? And that's it. Thank you. And I'm finished.
Thank you very much, Andrea. Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions for Andrea at all? Just feel free to unmute your mic. I tell you, a lot stood out, especially the subject line is such a huge thing when it comes to recruitment. You've got to get emails written carefully, or no one will read them. So yeah, really familiar advice there. Krystian, so you've unmuted.
Yeah, so I was just gonna, more of a point. Have you ever worked with, I think, I don't want to say efficient people, because all of us are efficient, but I work with one person who's particularly on point when it comes to their workload. She happens to be German, and she says, oh, it's her German efficiency, but she's very much like that. And she noticed that people tend to feel offended by it. So have you experienced it, that there are certain people, for example, that you worked with perhaps in your company that, I don't know, react a bit oddly to it when you just want to get a job done? Because I think there are positives and negatives to both. If the emails are too long-winded, I think they can, just be too blabby, etc., etc.
Well, I don't remember from past. Well, I'll be honest. I think I'm not German, but I tend to be very directly, because I think that time is something that no one wants to waste today. So I try to be short, but of course not rude. So when I am working in a company, like in the beginning that people don't know me, they might think, oh, what is it? Is Andrea, I don't know, rude or etc. But now, for example, the company that I am now, I've been working there for almost 3 years. So people know me already. They know how I think, how I work. And to be honest, I just started a new experiment, because what happened is I work with many people, different software teams, PMs, POs, and sometimes I need all of the people that I added to email, I need them to input, to tell me something. For example, just today, I needed to do something. I sent an email to them and I said, look, I am going to do this because of this and that. Let me know what you think. Otherwise, I'm going ahead. I'm waiting for your reply by copy today. So they know if that they don't reply to me, I'm going ahead with whatever I need to do. And nobody ever complained. So I hope they're helping with this approach. The thing is, if you leave it to people, they will never, many of them, they will never reply to you. So sometimes you have to be like super clear. You know, I need your answer by today, by tomorrow, and I'm going to take silence as agreed, you know, something like that.
Thanks, Krystian. Thanks, Andrea, for that. Again, guys, if you're happy to add some feedback, then please do. I know I've been seeing some coming through thick and fast here, so I think we've got 7 pieces already. So yeah, please keep it coming. So next up, we have Chiamaka, I believe. Is that right on the agenda? Yes. How to get started in tech and landing your next job. As and when you're ready.
Hi, everyone. So let me just share my screen. All right, so thank you so much for this opportunity. This happens to be my first lightning talk, or my first talk ever. So just a little bit about me, just expand this a bit. Okay. All right, so this is one quote I really like so much. It's by Steve Jobs. I think everyone in this country should learn to program a computer because it teaches you how to think. And it's just something that I've happened to live by a lot. So about me, I'm a software engineer. I've been working as a software engineer for like 2 years now. I graduated with a degree in marine biology, and then I was awarded the Google Africa Scholarship, which basically started my career in tech. So I've worked with Java for about a year plus, and I've also had the opportunity to work across multiple fintech industries, like the one I'm currently working in right now. So why am I having this talk? So I chose this talk because one of the challenges I had was basically landing my next job, especially for someone who didn't graduate with computer science or engineering of some sort. And in as much as there are a lot of advancements in technology, there's still a huge gap in the required skill set that needs to be filled in this industry. So in this talk, we'll be talking about like navigating your career path, especially when you're starting out in tech, understanding different roles that are best suited for you, and basically why you should even be in this space in the first place. So the usual approach to getting started, first off would be getting a degree in tech. And some people decide to either get a bachelor's or master's or a diploma in computer science or software engineering, which is actually one of the best routes to take. Another route is to basically just attend boot camps. There are a lot of boot camps coming up, which happens to be a cheaper alternative than as to having a degree, especially when you don't want to invest so much money in that. So this happens to be the approach I took that basically also helped me out when I was self-development, but it's also the most rewarding because and usually right now, a lot of people are writing more articles and telling more stories about how they started. And that just kind of helps a lot, especially when you're navigating your own career path in tech. So there are different paths as to where you want to decide on. So people think that you have to maybe choose an engineering role, which isn't always the case. So because of that, I've decided to share some roles that you can get started with. You can decide to go into web development if you want to be a front-end developer or a back-end developer, or you want to go into mobile development. But then again, there's some people who feel like, oh, I don't really want to code. I like design. So you want to go into UI UX, or you want to go into project management if you feel like you want to have like more managerial roles and more managerial positions. So how can you go about like landing your next job? So I see a lot of people throwing resumes at different opportunities that they get, but usually it's advisable to tailor your resume to a particular job requirement that you're looking for, and start having like an online presence. So usually LinkedIn has been a great resource if you want to look for a job, or then you want recruiters to find you. And then you have GitHub, where you get to share your projects and everything you've been working on. You can also get to start writing articles on Medium, which happens to be another alternative to basically increase your online presence. And then another factor would be community engagement, like the London Java community or any other community out there that you tend to join. When you're networking with different individuals, you get to like meet people that work at super great companies who could be kind enough to want to give you referrals, and that could be able to take you to your next job. And just like I said, referrals is also one of the opportunity I had in landing my own job where I work currently. I was referred by a friend, and that just really helped a lot. And the great thing about it is that you don't usually have to go through the whole recruiting process. So when someone refers you, you don't have to go like through the HR interview. You just get to go straight to like a technical interview, which is much more better. So in conclusion, starting a tech career, it's not always a straightforward path. Like I said, I studied marine biology, and now I work as a software engineer, which is kind of a great opportunity because I get asked a lot, oh, how did you start? You didn't get a computer science degree and you're working in tech. So it's basically about identifying, oh, what path is best suited for me. So I realized that I'm more of a back-end person. I'm not too good with colors and all of that. So I decided to, just go with career path of a back-end engineer. And it's mostly about knowing what you really, really want to do and then sticking right through it. So that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I could not agree more with that. There's so many different ways into tech. Like some of the best engineers that we've come across haven't gone to university, haven't done a boot camp, and have all been entirely self-taught.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. Can you hear me? Can everyone else hear me? Yeah. Okay. Chiamaka, can you hear okay?
Yeah. Yes, I can.
Good? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, 100%. It seems to be such a varied route in, and I think it's such an important point to make that tech is just everything. You can do it all online. You can go through so many different ways, and also the idea of getting into user groups. I've spent my career like pushing this to people because they're so effective. And for the final thing about getting a job through networking and through people that the referrals is just a much, I shouldn't push this as a recruiter, I know, but it's just a much nicer, more natural way of getting into a business. So, and that often comes through communities and user groups. So there you go. Join communities and user groups and don't use recruiters. Does anyone have any questions at all for Chiamaka?
I suppose I've got one. Would you say, I hear that learning coding, I'm learning currently myself, but I hear learning coding is a bit like learning a language. As you get older, I assume you get worse at it. And as it is with getting older, changing careers might be a riskier move. Would you say there's an end point, one point where it might be too late, I suppose?
Okay, so if I get you correctly, you're saying that about learning a coding language and then going into like more years into it, would it be like much more harder for you? Is that the question?
And at what age would there be a wall, if there is one at all, I think?
Okay, so I really don't think there's like a particular age that's tied to it, because I've seen like people in their 40s, 50s, and they're like very good software engineers. For me, I say when it comes to programming, it's really not about the language, but it's about the principles. Because once you understand the principles, you're able to master like any language that you want. So even at 50 something, you'd still be good enough to write Python or Java. So I don't think there's a particular age to it. Although as you kind of grow older, your maybe intellectual abilities could possibly decline in a bit, not as so like when you're much younger, yeah, but I still feel like even at 50 something, you'd still be able to write good code. So.
Great, thank you very much, Chiamaka. Thank you, Krystian, again. Next up, again, if we can grab some feedback as well. Dom, I don't know if that form's lost in the chat. If you wouldn't mind, if you get a sec, popping it up there again. So next we have Leon. So we dragged Leon in after a session, didn't we, of Luke's several weeks or months ago.
We did, yes. This is all thanks to Luke. So
yeah, thank you. I love that. So Leon here on why is legacy code so hard to work with. Here we go.
Right. Thanks very much, Barry. Right, I'll just share this. Cool. Okay, so yeah, I wanted to talk about some thoughts I've been having around why legacy code is so damn hard to work with. And I think everyone probably on this call who's hit some legacy code will probably agree with me here. So first of all, let's kick off with a definition. This was Mike Feather's Working Effectively with a Legacy Code book, which I think was probably the first book that really defined what we mean by legacy code. And he said it's code without tests. If there's no tests behind the code, then it's just bad code. He actually goes on to say it doesn't matter how well designed it might be, if it hasn't got any tests, then it's just bad. Because without the test, you don't know if you've broken anything. You have to send things off to the QA department, wait a few weeks to get feedback on that and then change things. And that feedback loop is just too long for us to make good progress and get features out. I actually spoke to him on a forum a few years after he wrote this book, and what he came up with was he says it was actually based on the observation that change is a lot easier when you've got a solid set of tests behind you. So I think what we really mean in software about legacy code is code that's difficult to change. Things, code that's going to slow you down, make that feature harder to get out. So every company I've been to, there's been somewhere in the code base, usually quite a lot of it that was written a few years ago. Nobody wants to touch it. No one wants to even look at it. And I was thinking, well, why is this? Because we know how to write code. There's all these books written on it. Best practices, design patterns was written well over 20 years ago. We know what it should look like, but we tend not to. Well, we do follow these practices, but the code ends up in this shoddy state. So why is that? Why isn't everything as beautifully written as what these books describe? So a slight detour for a little bit. Kent Beck, who was the originator of TDD, extreme programming, is someone that's constantly thinking about best practices in software, was looking at the common growth of all projects. So you kind of start off in this early phase where you're experimenting, you're trying things out, you're seeing what sticks. After a while, you see that customers quite like certain features. So at that point, as you grow, you're going to have to make the code, the project more stable. The application needs to respond to more users, and you go through this expand region. And then eventually, the company knows what it's doing. However much money they put in, they get an expected payoff for this. So we're in this nice kind of rolling, just this rolling point of the application. Everything's in a good state. We know that if we invest in another 30 developers, we're going to get some good stuff out. What Kent noticed was that these three distinct phases, the explore, the expand, and the extract, had different behaviors associated. Sometimes different people were better suited to one of these three phases. So I was thinking, okay, how does that actually relate to how the code's written and what the code looks like? So I then started thinking about abstractions. Now, all computer programs are made up of abstractions. Actually, I had a quick look on the BBC Learning website, and they actually cover what abstractions are. It says, once we recognize patterns in our problems, we use abstraction to gather general characteristics and filter out all the details we don't care about. All the things we don't need to actually solve the problem. So picking these abstractions when we write software is really, really important. Then Sandy Metz and Katrina Owen in their book, 99 Bottles of OOP, which is a guide to actually writing good OO code, actually pointed out quite early in the book that actually making these abstractions is really difficult. Well-meaning programmers, very skilled, read all the books and everything, tend to over-anticipate abstractions, inferring them early from not enough information. So I thought this is interesting. Are we picking abstractions far too early and then getting a little bit too wedded to them? And as the software grows, we're trying to shoehorn changes into these pre-existing abstractions. So to go back to Kent's little graph, are the things we're doing in the explore phase, are they becoming a bit too concrete and we're frightened of getting rid of them? Are we frightened of changing these abstractions that have already been put in place? Are we looking at these things and thinking, well, the engineers that wrote this are very clever people, so surely I'm thinking about it wrong and I somehow need to shoehorn my change into this existing abstraction? So I'm kind of saying, yeah, we need them to be a little bit looser. We need to not be afraid of changing code, particularly in the explore and expand phase. And maybe even, because we're all big on removing duplication, maybe we should start introducing duplication and then looking for a better abstraction based on the more information we've got. Oh, someone said I'm not sharing my screen. Is that? Can you not see that?
It's Zoom. Honestly, it's out to kill us every time.
Right, what can you see now? Can you see the graph?
Can't see it.
I confess I didn't even realize they were meant to be slides because it was
flooding.
It wasn't until you said graph.
Fantastic.
Me too.
So
I
you
thought
said
it was just a conversation.
Yeah.
Right then, for some bizarre reason, it won't. Let me try that again. It's all right, there's only one more slide. How's that?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent. Right, so this is right. So so basically, this is the graph to explore the expand and the extract phase, and kind of we're saying what I'm saying basically is that maybe we shouldn't be concreted to the abstractions we've got here. We should actually just keep changing them, maybe even up to the point where we get to the extract point, when we actually understand what the software is, what the software should look like. And then, so after I had these thoughts and I shared them with a few people, I came across a chap called G. Paul Hill that other people might have heard of, and he did a talk in the summer where he spoke about this thing called Rework avoidance theory. Now, his idea is that, as I was saying, don't get too wedded to things. We tend to think about when we introduce a feature that that's the last time we're going to touch that piece of code. We write the feature, that's it, we're never going to look at it again. And he said, stop worrying about that. Stop trying to avoid the rework and actually embrace it. So let the code change. It's software. We call it soft because it's malleable and it's not hard and concrete. So to give you a bit of a conclusion I've reached. So don't worry about re-engineering experiments in the early days of the project. Just throw it away and start again. The abstractions that are introduced early in the project aren't sacred. They have to evolve as the software changes. And don't be afraid of duplication. Introduce it. Actually, if you need to change a function and it doesn't quite fit in the abstraction you're looking at, copy that function over, create a new one and change it there. Then you'll see the real duplication. You'll be able to abstract that. And a very key thing that I press on a lot of teams I work with is tests shouldn't hinder you. They should help you change the code. If you find yourself writing long, tedious setups to get a test to run, and then the code's not going to be easy to maintain it either. Tests are a really good indicator of how maintainable your code is going to be moving forward. And that's it. If you want to get in touch with me, that's my Twitter handle. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Leon. That was great. So interesting. We had a presentation not so long ago in the Aspiring Principal Engineers from somebody that creates technical tests and has watched a lot of technical tests, and a lot of what you were saying sort of echoed things there. I actually made a screenshot of that. So abstractions are not sacred. They evolve as the software changes. I like that. I think that's really good. Did anyone have any questions for Leon?
I have one, but I'll let Andrea go.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with you. Well, if I got this right, I agree with you that, you know, things don't need to be perfect for starters. We live in a continual improvement cycle. It's great. My only fear is if you do something which is not, of good quality, it's more like a workaround. How do you keep it track? That at some point you have to look at that thing again. You can't leave a workaround forever. How do you do this?
Yeah, this is a conversation we probably all of us on this call have every day. It's like, how do you pay off this debt that I know I'm introducing? And that's why technical debt is such a useful phrase in that point, because you know that if you leave that workaround in, it's going to become, you're going to start to add more changes to that workaround, and it just builds. And I think, to me, it's about having a realistic conversation with whoever is holding the purse strings, actually say, Walt Cunningham, who came up with the phrase technical debt, he says that because he was talking to business people, that was a really useful metaphor for him, because he could actually say, look, when you take a loan out, and you don't pay it back, you end up owing more and more and more. And he said it's the same with technical debt. We're going to do this workaround, and we know it's a workaround, so trust us in our professional understanding. And if we don't pay that off quickly, once the feature's gone out, then this is going to start costing you more money. And I think it's really important to have that honest conversation, and it's getting to that, and it's difficult, and it's getting to that place of trust with the product owners and us as engineers. And I think that's the relationship we need to keep building up. Does that answer your question? Cool.
To be honest, having a conversation is great, but I still, to be honest, I didn't see the actual action, how to tackle it, but that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, it's difficult.
With that question, I was nervous. That was it. We're going to be talking about this for a couple of hours here. It's one of those, isn't it, that could go on and on and on. But yeah, great. Thank you very much, Andrea. Thank you, Leon. So finally, we have Mr. Krystian Bucko for his third one on the power of design. Krystian, you all set? You ready to go? Good man.
But just quickly unmute before we continue. Everyone can see my slides okay? Good. So I'm going to talk a bit about a topic that brings three of my key interests together, namely psychology, business, and then visual design. I know that many of you are back-end developers. Some of you might obviously dabble in the front end a bit. I assume majority of you hate it, but for those of you that can use it for front end, and for the rest of you who can use it for the PowerPoints instead, I think you should think carefully about design, as it's such an important part of our day-to-day lives, and it's hugely powerful. And if you need more convincing, I've got a very good example for you. There we go. So I'm sure we all sat down, or at least I did. Maybe it's just personal thoughts there. Sat down and thought, wow, why is the usual cup of coffee that I make at home for myself every day so cheap in comparison to what I have to pay in the usual coffee shop? And believe it or not, but design actually has an awful lot to do with it. Namely, back in the day, before coffee shops were even a thing, you used to be able to go out there. You used to be able to buy yourself a cup of coffee with your meal and get endless refills, and it wasn't a big deal. It used to be cheap. When the first coffee shops started arriving, they knew they couldn't sell coffee at a really high markup. And in a way, they used a workaround within design. They manipulated the way that we think about their product in order to get us to pay more for it. What did they use? Well, they used clever design, and they used disassociation. So as you may have noticed now, when you go to a coffee shop, you're not buying a black coffee, you're not buying a white coffee. What you're buying is a venti vanilla latte with 5 shots of syrup. You're buying a latte macchiato. They're not branding it as coffee because they know none of us would pay God knows how much for a basic coffee. They disassociated the concept from the original concept. They redesigned it, they branded it up, and they essentially packaged it up back to us. And I hope this illustrates just how powerful the way that we think about different concepts is. It's just absolutely incredible how changing one thing, or just changing a name of a thing, can have this huge influence on us. More on it, if you think about color, it also has a huge effect on us, both psychologically and physiologically. There's research that shows if you enter a room that's painted red, you have physiological reactions to it. Your heart rate will increase, your respiration will increase, your blood pressure will increase, so your body reacts accordingly. An opposite pattern is seen when you enter a room that's painted blue. So your brain obviously feeds this information to your body, that feeds it back, so you have an actual physiological reaction. And I think it's obviously, again, this demonstrates how powerful design is, and it's useful for us to know about it, because when we implicate it in our next project or our next PowerPoint presentation, I think it's a subtle hint that we're sending to our audience, but it's a very powerful as well. And I want you to start using it. And so I guess the last example that I also want to mention in terms of color, another interesting case study that I looked up. There's actually a study that showed, again, going back to the beverages, if you ever choose to brew yourself a cup of hot chocolate, there's actually a study that looked at how highly people rated the flavors of the hot chocolate, depending on the color of the cup, and color orange scored the highest. So next time, if you want to make yourself a better cup of hot chocolate, but you don't want to change any of the ingredients, just make it a non-orange mug and thank me later for it. But to continue, how can you improve your design? I think we've all been in a situation where we wanted to choose a bunch of colors for a project that we were working on. Again, it could be a presentation, it could be a piece of software that you're working on. And we have been in a situation where we picked a bunch that just looked atrocious. I'm going to give you 3 techniques that will help you pick them better. If you follow the steps exactly for each of those, the colors should be a lot more harmonic and it should actually work together. So the first rule, monochromatic rule, you pick a color from your color wheel at any point, whatever takes your fancy, and you increase the level of tint in it. It's like adding white paint into the color. Don't choose any other colors. A very simple rule. I chose it on purpose. Very easy to follow. If you put that in a user interface, it will work really nicely together. Rule 1.5, because it's the other side of the same coin, the shades rule, you just add a shade into it. Again, choose 5 colors, works really well. Stay consistent with it. It will look wonderful. Complementary rule, slightly harder to pull off. What you do is you pick a color on your color wheel and you choose an opposite color. It's really powerful in that it can make the information or the visuals stand out a lot. And I mean, if you use this rule, like for example, if you build a website and you want to make your conversion button or your purchase button stand out, this is the rule to use. It's also a difficult rule to use because if you use it too much, the information on your page will clash. We've all seen, I don't know, yellow writing on like white pages or something where it hurts our eyes. That's this essentially. So it's a very powerful use, but it's also really easy to screw up. So use it with a certain amount of caution. And then the last one, analogous rule. It's you pick a color on your color wheel. Again, it could be any color. And 30 degrees from that color, you choose 4 or 5 different colors while keeping the hue consistent. It's how you get designs that are colorful. And again, the colors won't clash. If you look at my sidebar, the one with my name on it, that uses that rule. And again, it creates really nice, stylistically pleasing effects, and it just looks really nice. Now that's it in terms of my presentation, believe it or not, but we only scratched the surface. If you gave me a chance, I could talk about color alone for like half an hour. If you want to do more reading on it, you could look into interaction of warm and cold colors, color selection theories, because there's more than 3. I don't know, consistency within design, how important that is, or even a layout and composition. All of it comes together in design and it's a much bigger topic. But for now, thank you. Make sure you apply those rules. And yeah, I hope your PowerPoint slides will look better next time I see them in here. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Krystian. Thank you very much.
Please give a feedback on my slides, on the color of my slides.
Yeah, it was very good. Do you know, I was funny enough.
But
just
what did you put? Is it a slide?
Sorry?
Sorry?
Oh, I couldn't hear. Sorry, I couldn't hear something there. But yeah, no, this color theory. I was recently looking at and found similar things, and it's so true. The impact it can make. Dom and I, we always struggle, I think, with any kind of design, don't we, Dom? So I think we just need to get Krystian in and send them to him.
One of my friends describes it as an intuition, but it isn't. I mean, you can learn it and it is experience, but if you follow those rules, and there's more, this is just one of few, it's actually a step-by-step guide to making something look really nice. So you don't necessarily have to bring someone in to tell you what you should do. You can just use that and it will look nice.
Okay, man. Any questions? Andrea,
I was wondering, do you know if people perceive the colors differently? Because, for example, maybe I like blue, but some people don't. So how can you know about the effect of colors, but are they the same over everyone?
So we're going into philosophy here. It's beyond psychology or color or design. We're going into philosophy here. I would just recommend, obviously, choosing colors that the majority of people tend to enjoy. So again, if you're working on a piece of software, A/B testing works really well. Obviously, bring someone in that, might know a bit more about it and just test it. There's no way of knowing whether the other person perceives color the same as you do. One thing that I would look out for, a bit on the technical side, that you learn when you work within visuals, people's screens, people's monitors perceive color differently. So you might create something that looks really nice on your screen, and then someone else will display it on their mobile phone or their computer or their monitor, and it will look absolutely atrocious. So that's one technical tip that I would give. That's closest to it.
Great, thanks everyone. All right, well, thank you very much for all our speakers. Thank you to everyone that has submitted feedback. I've been seeing it's coming through thick and fast, so really, really appreciate that. It's not all over yet, so if you only came for the talks, then you're welcome to head off at this point. But I would recommend you don't, because we have a Q&A with May. May, so there's May. So May is somebody who we've come to know this year within the LJC. She first gave a talk on closure to the LJC, and it was awesome. And I think about 5 minutes in, if I'm right, she just read out the Wikipedia description and then literally got up and said, "There you go, thank you, that's my talk done," and completely left the screen. And she has a very nice style of speaking, very different from anybody else that we saw. So we invited her back to do a Q&A, and she shared loads and loads of really interesting and useful advice for junior and aspiring speakers. And to be honest, her story itself is really, really inspiring. So we've invited May back on to have a chat with you guys, just to talk through her story and answer anyone's questions. So if anyone has any questions here for May, if anyone's sitting here watching this and thinking they fancy that, but they're still a little bit nervous or maybe struggling with imposter syndrome or anything like that, or have no idea what to talk about, then we've got May on to answer your questions. So May, good afternoon.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. First of all, I want to say to all of the speakers of today, I enjoyed every single one of the talks. And I wrote a lot of comments because I always have a lot to say. So I wrote a lot of comments, and I promised to send them via the form that I saw there for each and every one of you, because I really enjoyed it, all of them. And so thank you guys for doing that today. The first thing that I want to share with everyone here is how important it is to be a speaker as a part of your career. I don't think this is something that is mentioned enough. I don't think people are encouraged enough to do that. And I think it's important for each and every one of you personally, and it's also important for the community. So I think it's a win-win situation. What I'm going to say is this. A lot of people think that they can only do a tech talk if they have something new to teach everyone, or if they have something that no one had ever heard before, and now they're going to be the ones who tell that big secret or big thing that they found out about. Well, this is one thing that you can do at a tech talk, and if you have that one thing that nobody knows about, well, I guess that you're going to do a lot more than just the tech talk with that thing that you just found out that nobody on this planet have ever known before. But if it's not the case, what I think that you should share at a tech talk is your personal perspective on things. And when I say things, it's a general word because it's just, this could be anything. Something that you learned at work, a bug that you solved and you hated it, and you hated your life, your work, your manager, your everyone, but now you've come through it, and you can tell us about your experience. Tell us about something that you failed at doing. That's great, because we don't only want to hear about successful people. It's great to hear about successful people, but believe me, it is really interesting to hear somebody say, hey, I tried this and it didn't go very well. I saw a great tech talk by someone who got up on stage and she told us how she is trying to do something and she still didn't solve it. We were all waiting for a happy ending, and you know what? We're all developers, so we know that it's not always a happy ending. Sometimes it's an ending that you can cope with. So that's what she went with on stage, and everyone felt that they understand her, and everyone really appreciated the fact that she told us what she tried so far and what worked and what didn't work. So that's another thing that you can do a tech talk about. So that's the first thing, why it's important. That's why I think that everyone should do a tech talk. It's important for the community because people want to hear about other people's experiences. Okay, so that's the first thing. And if you don't want to do it for others, do it for yourself, for your career. Why? Well, the amount of opportunities that you're going to get are endless. The amount of people that you're going to meet, endless, even if it's online. Trust me, I started by hated all those online conferences because I was like, where are all the people? I want to meet people. But you know what? I guess just like me, people love to meet other people, and they just started approaching me, and I started approaching other people in the private chat and creating those communications that we lack so much these days. So it's still there, even though if you do tech talks on Zoom, then it's still there. So those things, those connections that you will get through doing those tech talks, they are endless and they're priceless. It's not something that you will get by just going to the same office, to the same job every day. So I highly recommend that. And well, you know what? Now that it's COVID time and everything is online, I can tell you a secret. I do most of the tech talks where I'm like business and the top part, and then I wear something nice, and then I'm all pajamas in like I'm still half pajama most of the time, and I'm just you'll never know that all as much as you're concerned. Right now I'm all dressed up. No, you know what? I have like, I'm not going to share with you, but pajama, but just believe, like it's getting too personal here, but whatever, you guys believe me. Okay, so just make sure you don't get up just like I did and then you're with all pajama there, and then it's going to be weird. But so that's another thing, you can do a tech talk in your own pajama. It's so cool. I think it's cool. I think it's fun. And yeah, I guess that's it.
Hey, let me ask. I need to ask you, because you're talking about what you're wearing. Last time you spoke about what you wore, and you said that on your first presentation, if I remember this rightly, you had 2 heels that were Star Wars heels, right? Star Wars on the back of them. So I won't take it away, but you were helped a lot, I think, with the confidence to get started from 2 mentors that you were introduced to. Can you talk about how many times you tried to get out of doing that talk, but your mentors kind of encouraged you back in, and tell that story? Is that okay?
Yeah. Let's do that. So the first time that I did a tech talk, I didn't intend to do a tech talk. What does it even mean? So I saw a posting in a Facebook group. This group is called Bucko. It's an Israeli Facebook group for women in tech. And they had this mentorship program, and they said they posted on Facebook, who wants to become a tech speaker. And I didn't really want to become anything. I just wanted to meet new people, wanted to meet more women, because I was kind of at the beginning of my journey. I just graduated from college, so I thought, oh cool, I'm gonna meet people and it's gonna be so cool, and I'll see. I didn't really think that I'm gonna do a tech talk. I just thought that I'll get out of it somehow. So I started talking with my 2 mentors, 2 amazing, talented women, and they started asking me questions. What did I do in college? What do I know? And then somehow we came to the conclusion that I can do a tech talk about my project that I did in college. It was a big project, and I did write some CFP, like an abstract about genetic algorithm and the steps of the algorithm. And I thought, you know, I did this abstract, but I felt so like I didn't have enough confidence, because I thought, well, I just graduated from college. Why would anybody want to listen to this tiny project of this whatever student? And why would they want to listen to me telling them about my project and about the steps of the algorithm? It's not new. They can read about it in the internet. Like, what do they need me for? And with this thought, I tried to get out of doing the talk. So what I did was I sent the abstract, but then the people of the conference, I sent the abstract to a big conference in Israel. It's called the Velsim. It's very, you know, it's a huge code conference in Israel. And they got back to me and they said, well, we want your talk, but because you don't have previous experience, could you please record yourself for one or 2 minutes talking about what it is that you're going to talk about in this talk and send it to us. So what I did is I recorded myself 1,000 times, bazillion, you know, videos. I did it again and again, and I knew exactly what I wanted to say, and then I didn't send it. And I wrote to both of my mentors, haha, sorry, I forgot to send the video, and I guess I missed the opportunity, and now I'm not going to be a speaker. Oh well, maybe some other in another life. Okay. And they went crazy at me. They were like, "Are you lying to us or to yourself? We're not sure what it is that you're trying to do." And they made me send them a screenshot of me apologizing that I am late with the video and sending the email and saying something about how I was delayed because of technical issues. And they made me do it and send them a screenshot that I actually sent the email. And, you know, if it wasn't the easy way, they made me do it like the hard way. You know, we're going to make sure you're going to do that. And I did it. And this very moment, they pushed me so hard. What it did to me is it made me think this. Okay, here are two professional women. They both work at big, huge companies, very well-known tech companies, and they have a lot of experience both on stage and, you know, as developers. And if they believe that I have something to present to the world, if they believe that professionally it's important that I will do this talk, who am I to say otherwise? Like, why would I be so against that? Why would I argue because I think that they know what they're saying, because like I can't argue with all their experience and their, you know. So I said, okay, I'll go with that. I'll just go with their opinion. And it worked. I went on stage and I did my first talk, and I was shaking and I was so scared, but I did it, and it was such a good feeling. And another small thing that I want to tell you about this first talk was that I didn't, you know, I wasn't sure what should I wear to the talk, because I always wear dresses, and I don't own, okay, I own one pair of pants, and I don't like it. It's just not my thing. I don't know. And I consulted with them. I told them, listen, I have one pair of pants that I went with them to all the job interviews, because I wanted people to believe me that I'm a real developer, and I guess developers wear pants. I don't know. That's something I used to think when I graduated from college. So I asked them, should I do that, or can I go like with one of my dresses? And they said, well, you know what, maybe just go with the dress that is like not too colorful, but something that still represents you and still, you know, is fitted to the professional event. And I went with it, and they said that I have to do it because people need to see that there are different types of developers. Like, I didn't think that a developer can like not wear pants, which I don't know where I got this from, but that's what I had in my mind, right? But I guess that's why I believe them, that other developers have to see that in order to believe that it's possible. And not only that I went up on stage with just a little black dress, I also wear huge pair of heels with shiny R2D2 as the shape of the hill, and it was all sparkles and flowers, and like sparkles and flowers and R2D2 and bows, and all of that was on a tiny hill. And it was, no, the hill was huge. It wasn't a tiny hill, but it was all there, and it was a great experience. So when you go up on stage, think about it, that you're not only doing this for yourself, you're doing this again for the community, because you are different and you are representing something different, and we want to see everyone on stage. It is so important. That's it. I told you to stop me if I talk too much, Barry.
Sorry, we were enjoying it. Everyone enjoying it, so I didn't want to get in there. But no, I think that was awesome. Like, I think that was what really came through. I've probably spoken to 20, I would say, keynote speakers or long-term conference speakers this year, and you get something different from every person you speak to, a different kind of perspective. And the one thing that came across from when we spoke to you, and again, we had fun on that one as well, like everyone there and getting engaged, was just how everyone is so different. And I think that was, you said you had this, the black trousers, and that's what you wore to all the interviews, and you felt like that's what you had to be. But your mentors gave you that confidence that, nah, screw that, you can be yourself. And as long as you've got something interesting to say, and you're just talking about it, then that's fine. And you've done that. And obviously now, it's taken you to where you are. So let's say you've now talked all of these people around that haven't spoken before. They're now going to do it. What should they talk about?
Well, first of all, I would like to offer my help before anything. I'm going to write my my Twitter in the chat. It's just Lady May. And if you find me, I promise I'll be nice and I'll help with anything you want. So you have my Twitter handle. Oh, I send it to you, Barry. No, I meant to send it to everyone, but you can write to me on Twitter too if you want. Let me send this to everyone. Okay, so this is my Twitter handle. If anybody wants help, I do that a lot. I help people with ideas that they already have or to find ideas. And the first thing that I would do is start asking yourself questions like something like, what are the projects that you did at work or outside of work? Maybe something that you just learned recently. Talking about how you learned something, it's very interesting to a lot of people. Maybe talk about two different things and compare between them, like two different languages that you worked with, and you can compare the languages. What was it like in terms of your experience, and maybe comparing just the languages. Tell us what was what's different between them. That's another thing that you can do. And then a lot of people do take one subject and they want to tell us all about this subject. An important thing to remember is tell us what are the alternatives. Any alternative that you present to us, tell us what are the other ways to do it. If you talk about a library, tell us what would happen if we didn't have that library, because just telling us this is the library and this is how to use it, it's not always enough for me to understand why would I want to use that. What are the alternatives? Don't go too further and start talking about all the possibilities. Just give us a few points so we'll understand what would have happened if we didn't have this specific library. It will help your case. So I guess these are the things that you can talk about. Another thing is just cultural things, or even things that helped you to work better from home. That's very relevant now. Things that helped you to not hate working from home. That could be an interesting talk. And if you do that talk, tell me about it. Obviously, I miss everyone all the time. So if you do a tech talk about how you love working from home, tell me about it. Yeah, and again, if anybody here wants help with finding a new subject, just you can ping me. I always find something for you to talk about. Don't worry. I talk a lot, but I also help other people to talk.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I would recommend everyone does get in touch with May. We did a Q&A, so I'm gonna call it there. Thank you very much, May, for all that. I really appreciate it. I think it's just such powerful advice, and really from someone that's been through it. You were petrified. You tried so hard not to do it. Your mentors wouldn't let you, and now hopefully you won't let some of these people, that might be a bit nervous, that might get in touch with them. You'll get them on stage as well. So. Yeah, it's just so important. We'll try and get the link out to you of the talk that May did, so you can see all of that. Thank you, Dom. So yeah, there it is. Feel free to watch it. It was good fun. and you can see May's R2D2 heels in person. So I'm going to ask, feel free to stay silent and give a nice long awkward silence, but anyone tempted to talk at an upcoming event that hasn't already? Chris, come on, I see you chewing. I know you're tempted.
So I believe I am booked in to do the next one on possibly the 11th of December.
Yeah, he is.
Good. Okay.
So I'm pretty nervous about that, but I'm totally going to do it.
You'll smash it, mate. You'll smash it. All right, cool. Well, listen, if anyone else is keen, if anyone wants to get involved, you know where we are. Yeah, so go and watch that from May. Definitely follow her, and as and when you've got any questions, then fire them her way. Oh, May, just a quick update as well on the women speaker mentoring thing. So we've now started that. I think we've got 7 mentors that can help. So if anybody is looking for a speaker mentor, either specifically male or female, or anyone from any social identity or group that you would relate to, then pretty sure that we can find someone. So again, speak to Dom or speak to myself, and we will make that happen. And that really came from that chat that we had. So there we go.
Yay,
Brilliant.
perfect.
Thanks, guys. See you next time.
Bye.